Hello, this is how to install and use ActiveState Komodo Integrated Development Environment. So ActiveState are a company that is distributing Linux-style open source interpreted programming languages such as Perl, TCL, Python, etc. And they have also created an integrated development environment for their distributions of programming languages. And this integrated development environment is called Komodo, started in the year 2000, and it wants to be cross-platform. So at the time there was no Visual Studio Code. They went with Mozilla XUL as the base, Mozilla XUL, which was a toolkit that was based on the Mozilla Firefox rendering engine, Gecko, and was using XPCOM, XUL for creating applications. You were using web technologies to create desktop applications. Development stopped 3 years ago. Let's see where we find the latest version and if we can install it on our Linux operating system, which is Ubuntu 25.04. On Google, I searched for Komodo IDE. Takes me to this documentation page. At the top, we have this here link to view the open source version of Komodo. So development stopped 3 years ago. And at that moment, the integrated development environment was made open source. This is the GitHub repository, github.com/activestate/open-komodo IDE. In the README, you can see download. You can download Komodo IDE installer here. From this Git repository, there's a directory installers. We're on Linux. Again, we're in the year 2025. The final installer was created in December 2022. So maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. We'll see. Linux x86-64, so this would be the one. I have finished downloading the file. Let's now find some instructions on how to install on Linux. So it's a tar.gzip. In the documentation, there was get Komodo and Linux instructions. So you should have navigated to the previous page, which is docs.activestate.com/komodo12. And the very first chapter there is get Komodo, which then takes you to the GitHub repository. Okay, Linux. We probably meet the requirements if we have an old enough glibc. So GTK2. I'm not sure for how long will these dependencies still be available in common Linux operating systems. Okay, so what does it say? Installing the license. So it says that you should just extract the archive, and then there's an install.sh executable in there. Let's check this out. So let's unzip gzip x zvf. So there's an executable install.sh. Let's look a bit inside of it because I want to install this into this directory tilde/.opt, tilde/opt/.opt. Okay. So it takes command line parameters. There's help -h. It asks some questions, but I do not know if it asks a question for the directory where it should be installed. I'm going to use a command line like this directly. /install -i tilde/.opt/Komodo IDE. Let's see. There's no GTK2. Let's fetch that. I always have GIMP installed, and previously GIMP was using GTK2, so GTK2 was always installed on my systems. But nowadays, on Kubuntu 25.04, GIMP is version 3 uses GTK3, so maybe GTK2 is just not installed on my system. So it says that the installation was successful to the correct directory tilde/.opt/Komodo IDE. And then as a way to make things easier, I could just run the command line Komodo if I modify my path environment variable to also contain tilde/.opt/Komodo IDE/bin. Or if I create a symlink towards tilde/.local/bin. Okay, but when I try to run, it complains that I am missing various files. So let me hunt for these deb files, install them, and hopefully, again, the integrated development environment continues to run on this newer Linux operating system. Let's see how we do that. Opt file update. Opt file search. Ctrl+Shift+V. And I need this one. Let's actually create this symlink. So the home directory .local and what was it? /usr/local/bin. So tilde/.local/bin. Okay. One of the deb packages has been installed. And now we're on to the next one. Wow, I would have never guessed the package name. Okay, next. And we see things happening. So graphical user interface application, Komodo IDE, let's get started. Native window borders, code minimap. Sounds great. Key bindings, if we can select VS Code. Default browser. Hopefully it's the same thing, right? So ls-la /usr bin Firefox. I don't know. Indentation with 4 and spaces. Don't insert anything. Don't wrap anything. Next. Finish. I have just downloaded Komodo IDE. Okay. Next up, I'm going to set up a Perl project, install it, configure it correctly, make sure I can run it from the command line. And then I want to use Komodo IDE to edit the source code, to navigate the source code, to run, and to debug. So I have git cloned a Git repository that's written in Perl. And I have installed it, configured it correctly. I made sure that everything works, and I have a command line. I would like to debug this project, kdsrc-build, inside the integrated development environment Komodo. So this is the integrated development environment. Let's see how we open a directory. In the left hand tool window with directories, so places, I have clicked on this downwards facing arrow and I went open directory. I selected the directory where I git cloned the Perl Git repository. And now I will want to debug. So for that, probably I'm forced to create a Komodo project. Let's see how that works. New project. It has selected the directory correctly. Save. I have opened the entry point file. Doesn't have any extension, but it's written in Perl, kdsrc-build. I don't really like to navigate to this submenu with hamburger icon, but I can show the main menu always. So from the hamburger menu, view, and toolbars, show menu bar. Let's see how we can debug this source code. Let's put some breakpoints. The window management doesn't really work the way I would want. So if you drag by the main menu, nothing happens. You need to drag by the toolbar in order to move the window. Then double clicking on the toolbar doesn't maximize the window. So for this, I'm going to try to show native window decorations and the server side decoration with the title bar from KD. That's from the settings. So Komodo IDE main menu, edit, preferences. In here you have a search box. You can search for, I don't know, native. And says a chapter group box platform integration. And in here we have native window borders, status bar below, classic toolbar layout. Okay, and now double clicking will maximize and restore the window as I would expect. These Komodo applications are actually two. There's an editor, Komodo Edit, and the integrated development environment, Komodo IDE. I wanted the full experience, the integrated development environment, not just a text editor. Unfortunately, I have installed the wrong one, this, whereas I should have installed this one. So let's try to undo what I did. So I did this symlink. Let's remove the symlink. And let's also remove the installation, which was in ~/opt. Hopefully that's all. Hopefully all of the files have been put in here, ~/.opt. And it's only me that I have created the symlink towards ~/.local/bin. Okay, so this time I'm going to download the Komodo IDE tar.gzip. The file has finished downloading. The difference in size is not that big, 75 megabytes versus 85 megabytes, or just 10 megabytes. Let's delete the directories. Let's extract. Let's do it manually as the previous time. So that's tar minus extract gzip verbose. Okay. The same install.sh file. Let's see if I remember the command line. Apparently not. So this one, /install minus uppercase I ~/.opt /Komodo IDE. So in my home directory, the hidden directory .opt Komodo IDE. Okay, and now I need to create the symbolic link. ~/.local/bin. Okay, let's start the Komodo IDE. Native window borders, minimap, key bindings, Visual Studio Code, Firefox. Don't wrap, don't insert anything. Wow. So this page did not exist in Komodo Edit. It has found Perl installed from binary packages into /usr/bin from the Linux operating system. Next. Finish. That was interesting. So the application should be open source, no account should be required. Or not. So an account seems to be required. Otherwise the application will close. I'm trying to ignore this ActiveState account login dialog because it's not modal. Let's see if we can get far enough. So the same procedure from the tool window places, downwards arrow, open directory. I have opened the directory that I need. Entry point file kdsrc-build, no extension. So I can't do actually much in the integrated development environment if I'm not logged in. I cannot even open a file. I do have an account. I try to log in, but I always get this error, login failed. It appears you are offline. So Komodo IDE is really old. And I searched on the internet how to fix this issue. Komodo IDE login failed. It appears you are offline. I get to issue 4 on GitHub, where it says that they are not going to create another release. So everybody, all of the future users will be affected by this issue. The issue appeared immediately after the release. The release was on December 2022, and the issue was immediately signaled on December 2022. And we are shown the JavaScript line that we want to modify. And there's a huge procedure that shows you how to modify an existing installation of Komodo IDE, which looks like this from this year, May 2nd. So let's try once to see if we can fix the issue. So it says go to where you installed Komodo IDE. That's .opt Komodo IDE lib Mozilla. Where is that? Lib Mozilla Chrome. There's a huge file in there, komodo.jar. Extract the contents. Not sure how to extract this. And then compress them back. Okay, let's do this in a temporary directory. So that should be just unzip. Whoa. Wrong button. That was really, really bad. I should have changed the directory first. Content, locale, and skin. Totally don't know what I'm doing, and I don't have this directory under version control, which I should have done first. I could leave the files there, okay. So I have extracted the 3 directories. Open up content komodo.js. Line 27. This guy says function authenticate user, which does not return anything. And I should just comment out the entire line, which I do with // So auth.authenticated equals greater than, and then if not authenticated, open login dialog. Okay, let's save this. Let's see how we compress back to a jar file. Okay. Should be named komodo.jar. We overwrite. If something doesn't work, I should just reinstall Komodo IDE from scratch. I'll just delete the directory ~/.opt. That's it. Because I have already extracted interesting files in here, and in here, and in here. So compress to a zip, rename, replace the original, restart your computer. Delete the contents of the following directories. Okay, let's find those. Komodo IDE 12 XRE cache to entries and startup cache. And then everything should work okay. And it seems to work okay. Yeah. It doesn't take much to follow the workaround if the workaround really is correct. So it took, 2 minutes to follow this tutorial. But these are the instructions that still work August 2025. Okay, so what I want is to run this thing in the debugger. Let's see if we can just put breakpoints here. How do we do that? Add edit breakpoint, Perl file line. Let's try to run. Yes. And pretty straightforward. It figured out that I want to run the correct file, which is kdsrc-build. It figured out that it's a Perl, even though it doesn't have any extension. And now the only thing that I want to provide is the command line parameters. So ---- pretend and then kconfig. Okay, debug in a separate console. And that's it. We have started the debugger. We're inside the integrated development environment. We have a breakpoint. It stopped at this breakpoint, line 1 to 1. Let's look at the shortcuts. So how do we do that? Hamburger menu, view, toolbars, menu bar, debug, step over F10, step in should be F11, and step out should be Shift F11 because we're using Visual Studio Code key bindings. So at least F10 works correctly. Or not, because it should have stayed inside the file kdsrc-build, and now it's inside debug.pm. It's actually stepping into. Okay, let's see this import. doesn't know how to navigate. Step into import, so step into works correctly. Step over works correctly. Hover. If I hover on top of a identifier, it does what it should. So we're inside the debugger, we're paused. So it shows the value of the local variable or what the identifier is. So it's an array with 10 elements. Let's see what pkg is. How do we inspect the value of pkg? So it doesn't say what type it has. Value KSB debug. Okay, what's called pkg? It's a string or what? Cache is a hash, so a dictionary, a hash map. Args is empty. Let's see if stepping out works correctly. So debug step out, shift F8. That works. Set base path, step into. Yeah, it's interesting how the debugger works. So it went a number of times on line 42 and I kept pressing step over. And only after that it populated the value in the argument parameter new path. Okay, let's see what APP is. So it has a type, KSB application, can be inspected. Okay, so we can look at the globals, specials. I'm not exactly sure why navigating doesn't work, but it should. This is a special application. It's using modules. It's using a entry point that doesn't have a Perl extension, etc. So it's a bit of a stranger application, and it also creates sub-processes using the Unix style fork mechanism. Okay, and we're approaching the finish line. Run all module phases. Let's see if finding works. Put a breakpoint in here, stop, start debugging. But it forgot the, no, it didn't forget. We need to go back to the correct file. So it remembers script arguments for all of the files. The next step is to actually set debug settings per project, such that you don't always need to navigate to kdsrc-build file before starting the debugger. Let's continue until the all method. This guy, run all module phases. Let's look at the call stack. So main, still the same entry point file, kdsrc-build, application.pm run all module phases. Let's inspect modules. It's an array. 2 modules, extra CMake modules, and kconfig, which is correct. This guy and this guy. Okay, so I am satisfied with what I'm seeing here. I can program in Perl, I can debug. The integrated development environment seems to be okay. Yes, it hasn't been released for 3 years. We'll never have another release because there's no newer releases of the Zool toolkit, the Mozilla XUL toolkit, which has been end-of-lifed for more than 10 years. If you want to run it, you will need to install some additional binary packages on your Linux operating system, but fortunately it still works correctly. x86-64. You will have to do the workaround that I did, such that you don't get a prompt to log into your ActiveState account, because that doesn't really work, no matter what you try. But then the debugger seems to be really good, works correctly, inspects local variables, arguments, globals, etc. Has call stack, syntax highlighting. Yeah, this is totally a valid Perl development environment for Linux. The alternative that I know is Visual Studio Code with the Perl for Linux extension. So this is it. This was how to install Komodo IDE in the year 2025 on a recent Linux operating system, and how to use it on a Perl code base with the features that it has. So it shows the outline of the files and of the project. It knows how to load directories, has syntax highlighting, minimap, all of the features that I really need for Perl debugging and Perl development, because I develop while the debugger is running. Thank you.